Did you know there are no white people in the Bible? Does that surprise you? It's true, I assure you. Not Adam, Abraham, Moses, Deborah, David, Elijah, Jezebel, Daniel, Jesus, Peter, Paul, or even Lydia, or the church in Rome were white. Most of the people in the Bible were Jews of Middle Eastern origin. The few people in the Bible from the region we now call Europe may have had light-colored skin and would be considered white today, but they were not white in their day. How can I say this? Because the concept of whiteness didn't exist yet.
Since the beginning of recorded history, humans have always thought in terms of tribes or nations, as in the Cherokee Nation or Navajo Nation, not a modern nation-state. But the idea of race is a fairly new concept. The Greek word for nation is ethnos, from which we get the word ethnic, and referred to any group of people with a common language, culture, story, and territory. Some nations were related to others with common historical roots and cultural overlaps. Some nations were greatly different from each other and far removed in every way.
Nations or tribes were categorized in various ways in the ancient world, as reflected in the Bible, but skin color was not one of them. It's not that the Bible never notes that some nations had darker skin than others, but that is an exceedingly rare thing for the writers of Scripture to mention. It just wasn't considered a relevant factor for identifying people groups. In the Middle Ages, no one in Europe would have called anyone white unless they had seen a ghost or were dead. However, starting in the 15th century, for the first time in human history, skin color began to take on a new significance. Europeans began placing people of different nations on a continuum of skin color, with baseless generalizations being made about people on either end. This way of thinking grew in prominence until the formulation of legal justifications for race-based chattel slavery in the 17th century. Creating the language of black or white people was driven by economics and empire. It was an effort to justify the enslavement of people from Africa or the Americas by Europeans as they expanded their global empires and needed cheap labor. What developed was a diabolical but baseless theory of race that classified all nations on some color scale of red, yellow, black, and white, which was combined with a developmental scale that put white people at the top, black people at the bottom, and red and yellow people somewhere in between. All this means that whiteness is artificial, a false story humans have created. It is important to know there is no genetic or biological reality that supports the idea that people with certain skin tones constitute a distinct group with common characteristics. People of all races are 99% genetically identical. Exactly who has been considered white has changed over time. Early in US history, neither Jewish, Irish, nor Italian people were considered to be white, but now they typically are. There was a time when the KKK opposed viewing Christopher Columbus as a hero because he was Italian. They did not consider Italians to be white, and they wanted to keep them out of the USA. Who gets counted as white has been amazingly arbitrary. Now, in saying that whiteness is not a biological reality, I am not seeking to diminish the impact race has on our world. Race is a powerful myth that has impacted billions of lives for half a millennium. Most of us with light-colored skin and European ancestry have been deeply indoctrinated in the mythology of whiteness, often under other names, and we carry unconscious convictions of white primacy, which we are skilled at hiding from ourselves. We may not tie it to skin color or genetics, but we typically assume that white culture, which we can't define, is better, more evolved, or more refined. We assume that other cultures can be improved by being more like white culture, regardless of skin color. Why does this matter? Because the amount of evil done in the name of race is staggering and beyond calculation. It must end. Because there is a false idea still prominent in many parts of the world that Christianity is a white or Western religion. This makes it difficult for many people to embrace Christ because they have been hurt by white people who claim to follow Christ. Too often, Christians from the Western world have bought into false racial ideas that have directly or indirectly supported white primacy. This undercuts the faithfulness, justice, credibility, and impact of the gospel. Jesus wasn't white. 70% of Christians globally are not white, and all people matter equally to our Creator. Our hope is not in any race, culture, nation, or other human source. Our hope is in the God who made us all from the same original couple, and who is drawing all people from all tribes and nations, regardless of color or culture, toward the same home in the New Jerusalem.
All modern humans, Homo sapiens, originated in Africa around 200,000 years ago. Early humans in Africa had dark skin, which provided protection against the intense ultraviolet (UV) radiation from the sun. Dark skin has high levels of melanin, which helps prevent UV-induced damage to DNA and folate, an essential nutrient. Around 60,000 to 70,000 years ago, some human populations began migrating out of Africa. These early migrants moved into the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and eventually the Americas. As these populations settled in different regions with varying levels of sunlight, they faced different evolutionary pressures. In regions with lower UV radiation, such as Europe and parts of Asia, there was less selective pressure to maintain dark skin. Instead, there was a new evolutionary pressure to synthesize enough vitamin D, which is produced in the skin through exposure to UVB radiation. Vitamin D is crucial for bone health and overall physiological functioning. Lighter skin evolved as an adaptation to lower UV environments. Genetic changes associated with lighter skin tones likely occurred over tens of thousands of years. In Europe, for example, research indicates that significant changes in skin pigmentation genes occurred around 8,000 to 5,000 years ago. These changes include mutations in genes like SLC24A5, SLC45A2, and TYR, which affect melanin production and distribution. One of the most well-studied genes related to lighter skin is SLC24A5. A specific variant of this gene, which is common in European populations, reduces melanin production, leading to lighter skin. This variant likely became widespread in Europe within the last 8,000 years. Another gene, SLC45A2, also plays a role in skin pigmentation. Variants of this gene associated with lighter skin are prevalent in European and some Asian populations. These genetic changes likely provided a selective advantage by allowing better synthesis of vitamin D in low UV environments. The TYR gene encodes an enzyme called tyrosinase, which is crucial for melanin production. Variants of TYR affecting skin color have been identified in various populations. In high UV regions, for example, Africa, parts of Asia, dark skin protects against UV damage, reducing the risk of skin cancer and preserving folate levels. In low UV regions, for example, Europe, parts of Asia, light skin allows for sufficient vitamin D synthesis, which is crucial for bone health and immune function. The concept of race, particularly the categorization of people based on skin color, is relatively recent and emerged with European colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. Scientific studies have shown that the genetic differences between so-called races are minimal. Humans are 99.9% genetically identical, and the variations that do exist do not neatly align with traditional racial categories. The appearance of white or lighter-skinned people is a result of human migration, adaptation to different environmental conditions, and natural selection. While these genetic changes have practical evolutionary explanations, the social and historical constructs of race have complicated our understanding of human diversity. In reality, all humans share a common ancestry and much more genetic similarity than difference. Be sure to share this video with all of your friends and family so that everyone is blessed with the knowledge that they deserve. Also, if it's not too much trouble, be sure to hit the like button so that the YouTube algorithm knows you enjoyed this content and shares this video, or spreads the awareness with more people just like you and me. If you found this video helpful, then I would love to invite you to join our growing community by subscribing to our channel. If you do decide to do so, make sure to turn on your notifications so that you never miss a video just like this one.